So in today's episode, I show you how to make a preset to do slides, something like this, where you'll simply just be able to take a shot that is like a picture or video, and you'll be able to drag in your preset just like this, drag in your media into your preset, and then your media out to your timeline. And then on your timeline, you'll have your whole preset displayed just like that in the matter of 3 to 4 clicks. And with that being said, let's get started. So we're gonna start off by just taking whatever our shot is and bringing it into our timeline. And then here we can see that it's obviously not filling up the whole frame, so we're gonna want to have that fill up the frame. I'm just gonna click this little, I'm gonna click on my shot, click on this little button here, and then I'll get these little handles. I can pull it out and I can, move it around to wherever it is that I particularly want it to be. So let's say right there. Great. Now right click, make into a Fusion clip. All right, now we have it in Fusion. I'm just going to arrange tools to grid just so that they snap around. First thing I'm going to do is just grab a background, and I'm going to drop down the alpha just so it's an invisible clip. And I'm going to come out of the media in and then go to the background. Okay, so now I need to make this into 2 pieces. We have whatever is going to be in focus, and that's going to have our text. And then we have the defocused on the outside, or a flatter image, or whatever it may be. I'm going to, in this particular one, defocus it and add a little bit of blur onto it, and then also flatten the image a little bit, just so that there's a bit more contrast between the two. Okay, so for the merge, the first thing that I want to do is, currently this is 5 seconds, so I don't know how long your slides are, but when you first bring in a shot into here, it's just going to be a 5-second clip. Yeah, so it'll be a 5-second clip. If you want it to be a different length, then you could set it here, or after you're done animating it, you could just cut it off and add whatever in. You just have to be cautious of where you're making your keyframes for your text to flow and stuff. So I'm just gonna come to frame 0. So the first thing I want to add in a little bit of like a zoom. So I'm just gonna come over to frame 0, as we can see here, frame 0, and the center point, or the size, excuse me, I'm going to just keyframe that as at 1. And then I'm just going to come down to the end of this and make this 1.1. And then if I play this, it's just a slow zoom. Actually, I think I wanted to make that even less. So I'm going to make that half. So a very subtle zoom. All right, so next I'm going to make the foreground, everything that's going to be in front of this, and then we'll have that little window that'll slide across. So I'm going to bring up brightness contrast, and we're just going to pipe this in, and I brought it up here. So on this particular shot, like down here, you can click these 2 little buttons. To pay in the butt to click those buttons, I just click on the node, and then for this viewer it's number 1, and then for this viewer you hit number 2. So over here is number 1. Now my brightness contrast, I'm going to drop down the contrast a little bit so it looks a little more on the flat side, and pull back the saturation just a tad. So this is what it looked like before. Now this is what it's looking like. So I think that's good. If I wanted to, you could add in, well, let me actually show you a different way. If you right click, you could come into blur, and then they have all the different types of blurs you can use here. If you know what the name is, you could hit shift and then spacebar, and it'll bring up this tool, so you can just type in whatever it is that you want to use. So let's just use a blur, and we can connect these up. If you have one already selected and then you type in blur, it'll automatically connect it to save you a little bit of time. All right, so now I'm just going to increase my blur size a bit here. And we actually have to play this one so we can see it, and that looks like a bit much. So I'm just going to add in just a little bit of a blur like that. I think that looks pretty good. So I'll bring those down just a tad. Additionally, now I want to add in my cutout. Okay, so I brought down a merge from up here, and I'm going to take my shot here, and I'm going to make this the foreground, and then I'm going to grab this background. Remember, it was just transparent, there's nothing here. I'm going to drag that to my background node. So the first thing, whenever you pull something to this, it's always going to start as background and then go foreground. So if you wanted to, you could just bring this one over and then bring this one over, and then it'd be accurate. Additionally, if you have these backwards, you could hit Control T and it would flip them. So there's something else you can learn. So now I need to add in that little cutout that I would use. So there's a couple of different ways you could do this. If you want to just use a rectangle, you could do the rectangle. So if we were just to take the rectangle, connect that up, and then invert this, and then we could increase, let's say, the height to 1.5, and then we could, put this on a little bit of an angle. So you could do something like that. If you didn't want that, and then we'd be able to animate this. If you didn't want to do that, you could just grab one of these polygons, and then you could create whatever the shape is that you want it to use. Okay, and then just invert that as well. So you could use that too, and then we could move this around. We'll just use this, and we will come. So this is going to be the node that we keyframe that animation when it's moving around. So we're currently at 0. I'm going to come over here, and then we're going to be keyframing the center point, because that's where we're going to be moving, the center point here. And then if we would come into, let's say, frame 30, and we could keyframe it, let's say, right there. And because the keyframes were already enabled, when I moved it on frame 30, it automatically made a keyframe. That's why you can see that little line there. This is going to move very linearly, so there isn't going to be any velocity increase or decrease. So let's add a little bit of that. So this is the polygon 1. We're going to click on polygon, right? And then click this little button here, and we can see the keyframes. Okay, so here are the keyframes. We're just going to click on these and then hit F, and then we could hit T, and then we could do the ease in, because this is the frame that's coming in. So now if we watch this, it's going to, whip in there and then slowly slow down just a little bit. So we could do that. If we wanted to make this animation a little longer, we could click on this and then hit hold shift, and then we could shift it over just a little bit. Open this up, click on here, shift it over a little bit. Then we could drag this point a little bit more. So now if we take a look at this, okay, so that's looking pretty good. And the whole time we have this zooming in a little bit. I think altogether this is looking pretty good. So now additionally, now we have that little portion, we need to add in the shadow. So all we're gonna do is look up shadow, and there's shadow. Now we have a shadow here. All we have to do is take our shadow node here and connect it to our merge. And the idea here is that we want this shadow node on top, because we want to add the shadow on top of this here. So we just have to make sure that this is the foreground. If this connection is switched around, just remember to hit T to flip them. Okay, so now on our shadow node, or on our merge, if we play our merge, now this is what we have. Come back to our shadow, and we increase the softness. Now we have that look here. If we want to reduce the strength of it, we could use this alpha to make it a little lighter, but that's what we have going here so far. So now we need to add in some effects to this here. So let's do that. So here's our merge. We're just going to disconnect this for now, because if we were to have this connected and then we come into our merge and let's say we put in brightness, it's going to add it in after, and that's not what we want. We want this brightness to be connected here, and then all of our new adjustments are going to get added here to the end. So that's just something to be aware of. To come into our brightness, and we have lift, gamma, and gain, we just want to get this to feel like it's back a little bit. So we just have to make it a little darker. So I think that is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to add in a bunch of extra stuff here. You can do this if you want to, you don't have to, but I'm gonna do it because I feel like it adds a bit more quality to an animation like this. So I'm going to actually add in a particle system. I'm gonna connect this up, take a look at it over here. We're going to switch this to 2D. And now I am gonna come back into my emitter. I'm gonna switch this to rectangle. And we are just going to fill up the whole frame. And then switch the point. And just so we get some balls going here. Velocity I'm going to be adding here too. Okay, let's not have this playing anymore. I just solely want this to play. All right, so how are we looking so far? You can't see anything. So let's increase these numbers, the total amount. And then the other thing that I want to increase is the size. So let's make these a bit bigger. So now they're just they're not even moving. Let's add some velocity in here. So now they're all moving that way. We want them to move up. So I believe that we're gonna make this 90. Let's see what happens here. Okay, they're all moving up. That looks good. So now I have that. I think I want to randomize the size a little bit. So let's add some variance on the size. So we get all different size little guys. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to not have them move so fast. So let's reduce some of that. So additionally, I want them to kind of move all over. So I'm going to add in some turbulence. And I think just leaving that at the default settings will be fine. I think that looks good. I think I want to drop down the number of them, maybe even a little bit more. And I think I want to increase the size. So let's see what a 1.5 looks like. Okay, that's really big. So I think that looks good. All right. And I think at the end of its life, I want it to just kind of get small, just so that they don't like pop out of existence. And I think maybe at the beginning of its life, very small. Jeez, screwing that up. Okay, that's looking a bit better. All right, so now that we have that, I need to add that in to our shot here. So I'm just going to, because remember this is 2D, I can connect this right up to this shot. And now if we look at this, this looks horrendous. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix in this blend. So it looks like that, but I feel like this is still, one size is a bit too big, and maybe the number of them doesn't look all that great. Okay, I'm going to turn off high quality here. Alright, so now that we have that connected, now if I connect this up to here, what will happen is those like little particles will only show up in this little window here. There are a bunch of them popping in and popping out. If you did want to, you could come into our emitter and we could just take this whole emitter and put it below. Actually, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to leave that and then take this, bring it below. And now be emitting below, so you'll never see them pop into existence. You'll just see them get small and kind of fade out. But I think that the quantity is a bit much. Okay, I think that looks a lot better. Add in a little bit of speed into there as well. Maybe a bunch of difference. All right, so now we have that. Now I just need to add in our text, and I'm going to have our text be a part of this piece, the piece that we've been adding in all of this, because when it moves over, this is supposed to be like a little reveal of whatever this background is. So if I have the text being a part of this, you won't see the text until it gets inside this little window. Let me just show you here quick. As you can see it, you don't see it over here, but you only see it in here. So now I can animate something in this little window. Mainly, I would want to have it animated over in this area. I could have something animated over here. And change this up a bit. Oops, it's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay, so now I can take, I'm just going to look at this node first. So I know that I need to have it land somewhere in here. So since I know that, I'm just going to put it there and then keyframe its position, and then I can come back and view it here and come back to, let's say, frame 0 and have it over here. And now on text 1, just see those keyframes for its position. Wait, what? Okay, there we go. I don't know what happened there. I'll just get both of these. Hit F. I think I need to bring, because this stops kinda, I need to bring this guy way in. Okay, there's a couple of things I can do. I can click on this, cache this to disk, just because that is going to be a bit of resources to render out those particles. Now if I play this, it'll get a little bit better. And I can also render this one to disk. And now that I have the primary things that take up resources to render, so I have the particle system rendered out, and then I have this little bit that has the blur already rendered out. Now I can play this, and I'll play back at the full frame rate without really struggling much. So that's kind of where we're at to this point. You could add more stuff in if you wanted to. You could come into this polygon, you could change its location up, you could change, you know, how it comes in, how long it lingers in an area and then it wipes off. You could do all that sort of thing. Additionally, at the end here, if you wanted to, let's say, have multiples of these, you could come in and take a merge, and let's grab our background merge. We'll connect that up. That's the merge that doesn't have an alpha and there's no color in it. And then connect this up. Now this one looks the same, but we could then let's make this full. We could then use this, or, you know, we could go, let's do 2 and 2, and we could, you know, tilt this on an angle. By the time it gets, you know, to the end of here, so let's say, actually, you know what, let's make the height 4, just so that this point is below here. So what we could do now is we could come to, how many frames we have here? Okay, so we could come here to 100, set this keyframe, and then come to the end here and have this wipe off. That wipes off. You could make that speed quicker by just making, you know, these 2 points closer together. So we could just take this, hold shift, bring it over a little bit more. Okay. All right, so now when I come over to my edit page, if let me grab a stock clip quick. And now because that has an alpha, I could grab a clip, drop that here, bring this up, and bring this under. And now here at the end, oh, you know what? I completely forgot to add in the media out. So if I connect this up, now go back over to the edit, at the end here of this, it'll wipe it. If you wanted the wipe to have that shadow, oh shit, that's shader. If you wanted it to have that shadow, you could have that, reduce this a little bit, and now you'll have that little shadow. I mean, there's a ton of different ways that you could get it to wipe from one to the other. So if you were making multiples, let's say you're doing a slideshow and you were making multiples of them, you could have them wipe from one to the other by just making sure that at the end here, whatever your last thing is, there's a wipe and it goes to an alpha, because then the alpha will be underneath. So you could just, you know, you could copy this whole thing, and then all you would have to do is at the end point, you would just change the media in, and you would also just change the text to something. So now all you would have to do is take all of these nodes, right click on it, come in here, save as. Let's just put it on my desktop quick. And let me grab another image quick. Okay, so I'm gonna grab another image quick. Here's my other image. I just drop this image on here. I just resize this up quick so it fits the whole thing. Okay, and we're just going to make this into a Fusion clip. Come over into Fusion. Now I save that settings file on my desktop as slides. I'll just move these 2 points out a little bit. Where am I? Here. Drag my settings clip on here. The end, I'll just connect there. And then, where in the world? Hold on. Oh, it's right there. My media in. Connect my media in right here. And now I have pretty much I have the same exact thing that I had previously. The only thing, the reason why it's struggling is because I would just have to add this to a render cache. So I just have to render cache this, and then render cache this here. Or you could just render cache the whole thing and it'll just render out everything. This blur kind of takes a bit of resources, so let me just do this one quick too. Now that I have everything, I can just go through and play this. And there it is. It's that easy. I have all of my stuff. The only thing I might need to change is what's written in this particular node here, or how dark this background is, and I would just come into this brightness contrast and I would be able to adjust it here to fit the needs of whatever this is. Something like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I would go about making a slideshow in Fusion, as well as making a preset so I could make additional slides and I don't have to go through this whole process of making these over and over again. Let me know in the comments what you think about this one. If you have any ideas or suggestions, leave them down there as well. Again, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.